Hi, I'm Jonathan Mamaril, the host of the HR Engage podcast, and I'm here today with another episode with Simon Lieber. Simon, how you going?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself today?
Good, Simon. Your LinkedIn basically reads like a laundry list of experience. So instead of me reading that out, I'm going to get you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, yeah, a laundry list. Well, I suppose it is because everyone keeps saying, okay, what don't you do? And I've been lucky that I've had a whole lot of experiences and I'm a generalist, not a specialist. So I rely on being able to go into different areas, whether it's business development, workplace health and safety, HR, restructuring, companies starting up, companies actually going to the next level.
Yep.
So there's a whole heap in different industries from, aviation, constructions to health, to government, even internationally. So
Yep.
there's just so much that I've been around, and I've been lucky enough to actually have some great mentors along the way and picked up so many different things, got a lot of scars.
Yep.
So where you've been in tricky situations. So you'll learn heaps from that, more so than out of a textbook, and be able to connect with people when you have an issue. You've got a great network that you can reach out to and just ask that question.
You've got loads of experience, and I want to dig into that a bit here because you are a proper generalist. And that is, when I say generalist, I mean generalist. Can you tell us a little bit about, your HR generalist experience? I know you've got WHS under your belt, you've got ER, IR, but tell us a little bit your HR generalist work.
Well, by default, I was
Uh-huh.
thrown into HR. And then that started, I'm showing my age now, back in 1999,
Yes.
when we were on a project, when a company actually went broke on a project. And all of a sudden we had to acquire, for the company I was working for then,
Okay.
year one, had to absorb all the staff.
Wow.
Well, being that safety person, all of a sudden, what's this HR? What does H stand for? Okay. And so we had a lot of interaction, and by default, then I started getting more and more involved.
Yeah.
I started sitting on regional sort of committees and things like that, where the HR side of it was paramount. What about our people? How do we get them? How do we grow our people? How do we influence and stuff like that? So it started way back then just by a little snippet. And then by default, when I go in to do consultancy with a company, you can do HR too. We've got this problem. Can you help us out? Give us some advice here, or okay. So as you said, a lot of general experience, but it just kept growing.
Yeah.
Then met people like yourself in different areas, and we've used your services a couple of times where we've been out and needed that extra or handed the cases over. But the human resource side comes back to basically how do we build a culture within an organisation? How do we get people to grow? The laws are changing everywhere around us constantly at the moment in that space. How do we keep within the law bounds of the law? Plus, how do we also get out there to get people to actually want to stay at work, stay with the employer? Because one of the biggest problems I'm seeing at the moment, being a sort of boutique recruiter, is that people are just darting left, right, and centre. Back in the old days, if they got 50 cents more an hour, they went with that. Well, that's sort of gone now. It's more or less, how are they looking after us and
Yeah.
that type of thing. So I've been thrust into different areas in there. We also help out when people go into administration. So we then have to deal with the human side of, okay, the business is now going down on one knee. We have to do some things there. And how do we actually communicate that properly? How do we talk to the people, having that empathy, but having to have that business goal at the same time, that they actually stay afloat so that everyone actually, and it's the same when businesses,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, if AI comes into it, how do we manage that? In my recruitment business, that's one area I'm suffering at the moment because
Yes.
AI is stepping into that area. So people get on to online and do this, where the old days it was just Google. Well, now you've got all these different AI will give you all this advice and everything,
Yes.
but they're missing that human bit where they've got to be able to talk to someone, show that empathy, and actually have the conversation. Which part of that business for HR is the biggest thing from my perspective. If you can walk and talk with people, the message is a lot easier to be palatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there'll always be emotion, but there's just so much. And then how do we then look at how are we going to grow the business? What type of workforce do we need? We need that, these type of specialists. We need these. Do
Yeah.
we grow our people and bring them with us? And what does that encompass? Okay, we'll go to the management now. It's going to cost us X amount of dollars to upskill these people, but they're part of the business. Okay, so any business is if you don't have the right people, you don't have a business. It's as simple as that. I mean, COVID proved that.
Yep.
We had those huge issues. So yeah, the human resources part. I thought I'd turn that phone off.
It's all right.
Sorry, mate.
It's all right.
I went to power off. Why did? Because I had to put my finger on the fingerprint. He's turned yours off there, aren't you?
No, I'm just noting the time. Just noting the time so I can tell the marketing team just to
Okay,
edit it from
so
there.
I'll go 3, 2, 1. So yeah, AI has changed a lot for our businesses in HR as well as recruitment and things like that. So, but the biggest thing is we need to have the empathy, and I can't stress that enough. From everything that I've had to do in Hard Knocks and had to stand in front of 300 people and say, okay, that's it. My hardest one for that was when the GFC first hit. I was in Indonesia many years ago, and I had to stand up in front of 320 locals over there in the middle of the country. And I thought, here we go.
Yeah.
I had to stand up and say, project's now at an end. Sorry, we can't proceed. And they all said, yeah, we understand. It's the world. I went, wow, that was the easiest time I've had to put off 320 people ever. Because they understood, because it was the way we actually approached it and messaged it. That is the biggest key. And HR has a very big important role there. From my perspective, is actually telling the senior leaders, okay, this is the message we need to style it. We've got to communicate it. Yes, it has to be honest, and it's got to be, but this is the best way to actually put it forward, because then we have these other steps that we have to follow afterwards.
And that seems to be a key point that you brought up. I mean, there's lots of key points, but one of the key points I picked up from what you just said there is that empathy part. So you talked about, and that being human centric around human resources, and just that example of the 300 odd people that you had to say, look, the project's at the end. You based it on, yes, we had this process and there are legal ramifications and all the governance and everything else. And but the way it's communicated was integral to you.
Look, it is, because at the end of the day, you can stand up there and then they'll throw rocks at you or whatever, or else they'll understand. I mean, that was probably the most empowering experience I had when I was project manager at the same time, but I also had to do the HR bit. And being in a third world country where we only just started, the GFC came down and just everything came to a grinding halt.
Wow.
But every single person that we stood up and said, this is how it is. I'm sorry about the other world. And they said, we understand. Every single one of those people wanted to get a photo with me that day.
Wow.
And that's, to me, I will never forget that, because it was the way that I structured, where I was told to deliver it in a different way. I said, no, we don't do that in this country. You've got to know your audience.
Yep.
Okay. If you understand your audience, you can then tailor the message to that. So the message can always be the same, but it can be delivered in different ways.
Can I ask you about that tailoring your message to your audience? And I think it's a really good tidbit for anyone listening on the HR Engage podcast. We've got, demographic shows us that it's early career professionals, and you've also got people who are very, very senior, and pretty much anyone between in the HR space or people management space. So I think that's a really good tidbit there. What was the original message? Was the original message so far off? Was the original way they wanted to communicate the message so far off with the way you wanted to do it?
Oh, look, it was. The message was basically just get up there and tell them that's it. Just pack your gear up and go.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
message came from Australia at the time,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
just time to shut it down. Full stop. Be on the next plane. Where I actually stay there for a week with them and help demobilize and do all that sort of stuff. Even to this day, what's it, 15 years ago, roughly, that I was that experience was. I'm still getting LinkedIn messages from Indonesia saying, "Pa, how are you? Saw a post, thank you for your time while you were here." So that is rewarding in itself. But we still had a job to do, but we
Yeah.
had to do it. Now, the key learning for people just starting off in the industry, I suppose, especially in the HR and in that focus, well as safety, is that we're all humans. One of the large projects I've just come off, uh, I actually used to grab the HR people and say, "Come for a walk with me." That wasn't my role on that job. We're going out in the field. Come on, we'll go. And they actually went out and started talking with the people, turning up at toolbox mornings in the mornings, or just going, "How you going?" And all of a sudden, their interactions become a lot easier. They weren't the evil HR people anymore.
Yeah.
They actually were humans, and people could actually come up and have a conversation before it got to a really nasty point. They could actually be engaged and didn't have that fear of it. Because the biggest problem we have with HR, IR, or safety people, no one wants to know us until something goes wrong, then they love us. So that's the issue we have. So we need to break that stereotype down, that barrier. And the biggest problem, the biggest thing that when I have someone coming on board, I'll always walk them out there. Let's go for a walk. Let's have a chat
Yeah.
with these people. Don't sit in your HR, IR safety room and just peek out. Be amongst it, because that is by far the biggest lesson I've learned in my career so far, is actually being out. And yes, sometimes it will be prickly, but that's
Mm.
the nature of our job. Sorry, we can't do this because of this, or,
Yeah.
but you've got to be out there and got to be able to talk to it.
Your experience has been layered, but from what I can hear, and maybe what people can hear and watch right now, it becomes pretty obvious that you work project to project. Can I ask you why you chose to go in that direction as opposed to, say, working for an organization, full time, and doing a internal HR role or internal, you know, ER role or something like that? Like, why did you choose a project to project type viewpoint?
I started my career in projects,
Hmm.
and I was staff,
Yeah.
but in it wasn't a HR role. Again, like I said earlier, by default, I was doing HR work and IR, and got my scars from that. Be wearing a dual hat, because when you're on a small project, you don't have big teams. You basically had to learn the hard way and cop it a fair bit. Um,
How small was that team? Was it just you, or was it just only
uh,
a couple of you?
you'd only have probably three.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Yeah.
some of the, and it was 10 years ago I started my company, and everyone says, "Why'd you start it, Simon?" And I said, "Well, I got sick of contractors coming in, and I kept saying, well, we could do it better." So I had to put my money where my mouth was.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we basically started the organisation across Asia Pacific, and then had different parts underneath it. But purely from there, now I go into organisations sometimes when they're having issues, and they need to change the culture,
Yeah.
where some of the companies headhunted me before I started my business. So I went into a copper and gold mining company, and I said to the person doing the recruitment, who was the CEO, I said, "I'm not an underground miner." He says, "I don't want an underground miner. We need to change the way that we look at this business." And it was, I was there for 2 years, and we totally changed a lot of behaviours, in the world where we classify lost time injuries and all that. We reduced it. We didn't cheat it. We actually got rid of a lot, because we actually sat down with the people and says, what processes work for you and what they don't. Through, yeah, manual this big out, made it this big, but it was
Yeah.
actually made by the people that are actually doing the work. So they took ownership of it. So all I did was gave them the opportunity
Yeah.
and made it happen. So then we start our own, but project to project at the moment is where I see myself where organisations need that little bit of hand advice. Sometimes I go in for 2 weeks. Sometimes I go in for 3 weeks or a month and end up a year before I exit the business. Because while you're there, it's, oh, you can do this. Oh, while you're here, you can do this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still have HR directors ringing me from projects that I've been on saying, just want to ask you this question. I say, yep, yeah, no worries. So I've got a very good network around me now,
Yes.
and then we work on that. But yeah, I just basically have my own business with a few staff, and that's what we do. Just go project or business or organisation. Doesn't have
Yep.
to be project.
Yep. Yep.
We call them projects because we go in with a set goal to do.
Yep.
What's the
Yep.
outcome you want us to do? It's okay, we're going to need to achieve this, and that's what we do.
So that, I suppose that move was more because you saw, yes, you saw a space for a gap for it, but you also saw that, hey, I could do better in that position to help organizations, you know, whether it's a capability gap or whether it's a problem solving or whatever the situation might be. That's where you saw, well, okay, I can really help in this way.
Look, it was because the biggest thing we actually saw was where I actually had experiences when I actually worked for companies as an
Yeah.
employee and saw how things sometimes were and how I was treated at times. And I went, no, we can do this better. And that's why I went out and basically did that. And I sit beside some fairly great HR specialists at the moment where we will sit down and, okay, right. We need to have a meeting. Right. What cafe? Is it coffee or a glass of wine? Oh, it's definitely a wine conversation. Right. Okay. Oh, so that bad. Okay. Right. But we do a lot of sharing that way because
Yeah.
it's, it can be a lonely area, HR. It really can be because we at times have to have the nasty work. We've got to
Mm.
have that conversations that no one else wants to have with their employees. And so it's a HR responsibility. Well, it's no, we will sit with you and coach you and support you. But the message also has to come from that leader that person actually works for. And that is the biggest thing that a lot of organizations fail with. They'll just say, right, this is the way it is, bang, bang, bang. So there
Yeah.
goes the empathy, the emotions go up through the roof. Then we start finding court cases. Then we find all the wrong things happen from just getting that message the first time where it can be done a whole lot better. So I decided to go out and make a difference on.
You mentioned a few times already this, having a network has been important because HR being, just because of its definition, being a lonely, can be a very lonely role.
Yes.
And you found that having a network or, HR network being integral. Is that something you would, advise or as a tip to anyone listening, that this is actually, you're not alone. A lot of the issues, that you go through are being dealt with others, and some peer learning is actually a great idea.
Look, it is because it's sometimes we just need to download ourselves. We just
Mm,
need to talk to someone who actually understands what the hell they're going through. And that is a big thing. Um, it's funny. One of my offices that I had, I went and bought a nice big flash coffee machine, and we bought a $20 couch off Facebook Messenger of all things. And everyone says, "Oh, we're going into Simon's counselling room." Well, it wasn't, but people could actually come and sit down and just shut the door,
yeah,
know that what was said in that room stayed in the room,
sure.
and just whew, and it's a huge difference from someone just being one of the people doing the bus driving to a cook, right through to the executives to the fellow directors. But for us in our world, because the environment and some of the conversations we have to have or witness
Hmm.
can be quite soul destroying. And
Yeah,
especially if you've got to stay professional and stay neutral, at times that is very hard. But
yeah,
you also need that network to say, hey, look, and you don't even have to mention names. You just say, had this case. This is what's happened. Oh, crap. What would you have done? Can you give me any advice? And if you don't have that network just for support to be able to download and have that conversation, it makes it very hard for you to progress or actually learn, because you can only learn it's in man out of a book. A book doesn't
Yeah.
tell you what the emotions feel like or look like, reading people's body language, because you could be sitting there hearing a complaint and you go, oh, hang on, whoa, we need to slow down here because the person's about to go like this. You need
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
capture it. And, if you then ring someone up, say, this person did this in front of me. Oh, okay. This is what it means. Ah, thank you.
Makes sense. It's almost like, oh yeah, that's a final piece that, okay, that all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Yes.
jigsaw. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And so HR has been one of the areas that you've focused on, right? And you, as you said, you almost like default fell into HR. Why why do you particularly enjoy the human resources space? Because you keep on going back to it, you keep on going into it. Why do you enjoy it, Simon?
I suppose it's and I was sort of raised in HPC. I was raised in PNG where, a lot of the things up there is very family and
Hmm.
very traditional. And one of the biggest things I find there is that empathy. I use the word empathy a lot
Yeah.
because that's how I've been able to be sort of successful. I mean, there's a time and a place to turn it off and actually have it on, but you need to understand what people are trying to say. Look, I understand what you're saying, but this is the way it has to happen because of these reasons. The empathy is huge in everything that I do, because I need to, and it can be even when you're sitting across the road where you've got two companies sort of having a dispute.
Yeah.
You've got to understand that, and it all comes back to people. If you don't have the right people, you don't have a business. And every single day, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, what field, is that conversation, which is the HR bit. It's conversation, conversation, conversation.
Do you find that can change a little bit depending on the industry that you're in, or is it more
Oh,
determined by?
yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No, look, it is totally. I mean, with our diverse clients, man, I can walk onto a building site and right, I'm going to talk like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can go onto a coal mine surface, talk like this. I can then go coal mine underground. I'm going to talk like this. They have different ways of talking, jargon, everything. No matter by jargon, there's the slang word they'll use for something.
Yeah.
And if you go to a different type of business, the same word might mean something totally different.
Yeah.
Uh, and the different type of empathy would be different. If you're talking with nurses versus a taxi driver,
Yeah.
two different types. So it swings and roundabouts, but totally depending. And of course, if I'm talking to the workforce, and then I have to totally change my dialogue if I'm sitting in a boardroom, saying, well, this is your man and this is where it's going. This is what you need to do. It's a totally different conversation. The intent is still the same, but the language is totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the communication style almost, or at least the communication framework does change from industry to industry. It's not a one size fits all.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And for government versus local government to
Yeah.
federal to, to the small business owner to, tier one corporation, the language is all totally different in the way you have to pitch your message.
You also mentioned, I suppose, previously that you had that work health and safety background as well. Now, I know there's a lot of listeners of the podcast that have WHS under their purview as well in the HR realm. What are your thoughts on that? Does it need to be together? Does it need to be collaboration? Does it need to be separate? I mean, considering there's some new laws around, that sort of intertwines a bit more. What are your thoughts, or what do you think the optimal way forward is, really?
Oh, let's open the can of worms.
Why ask the question?
Look, and the question's been going around for years and years. I mean, where you have an organizational structure where they've got the HR manager and safety report to them corporately and stuff like
Yeah,
that. To me, that doesn't work.
yeah,
Okay. They have to work side by side because, again, we're talking empathy again, where both sides need to understand it. It's a message
yeah,
because you've got workers' comp. You've got, okay, we need to change the rules around the legislations change if you're in construction, safe work method statements, or, we've got silica dust now and all that type of thing. So again, your HR also helps the safety on how we're going to sell that message the best way.
mm,
Because at the end of the day, you need compliance to it. So how do we now get compliance without HR having an input on how we sell that message to now say, so we've got to reprimand you now because legally we're supposed to be, we're training you, we're showing you what to do, you're refusing to it. So now we have to start writing you up for it, which
yeah,
then comes back to HR, working with safety and the supervisors of any business on trying to do it. So they have to work side by side. They really do, because again, it's how we get the message, and a lot of the HR, IR, safety, it's all about compliance. The rules and regulations are getting so strict out there on what you
yeah,
can and cannot do. You know, everything about, when can I ring someone that's 5:05? Oh, you can't ring me now, sorry, because I only work till 5 o'clock.
yeah,
And that's how do we manage all these different things uh, in a business scenario? And again, every business is different. Now, as a consultant, my phone rings 24/7, and
yeah,
I'm not going to complain when it rings at 1 o'clock. So we're in trouble. We need you now. Yep, no worries. But that's the service I provide. But how
yes,
does a business themselves manage, how do I now make sure that we work within the hours versus what's expected of other business types that do expect to get calls after hours, because it's the nature of the business. If I'm
yeah,
an ops manager and I'm looking after a big plan and something, the green button goes to red and I don't know what to do, I'm not going to ring the boss because it's past his time. You're going to
yes.
ring before it goes bang. So that's got to be that. How do we manage that? And a lot of businesses are really still struggling with that, because we got people saying, these are my work hours, that's that, which is, yeah, fair enough, because we do need to shut down. We do need time off. We need to, you know, need to have family time or whatever we're going to have, but how do we manage that? So your health and safety and your HR have to come together, and they need to work together on these strategies on how to communicate it. And then, of course, IR comes in the sideline with that too, because saying, well, our workforce is saying this. And then, of course, they go to HR, and then HR go to safety and go, well, what's the ranks on this? They go, oh, but this. So it is encompassing. They have to work together. They really do.
Have you seen, and again, I don't need to name names, but have you seen it where organizations have those two forces actually clash in the organization and then sort of
Next
create?
question.
The reason why I asked, Simon, is because I have,
Can you picture it the other way? Simon, can you show me any companies that actually work together?
I've seen it where um, it can work, but they work together, but it's so and when it's flowing, like it's really it's very they're almost, they're budding up to, together, like it's quite there's a togetherness, almost like marketing and PR, or something like that, where they're just matching really really well. But I have seen it where and partly because of the reporting structure as well, but also even without that reporting structure, where they're almost on that equal level, that there is that clash. Do you see a future where it's almost going to be always combined, always almost combined, or do you see that as it still needs to be quite separate, but they need to come together and collaborate, and it's just going to be harder work. They just have to work at that.
Yeah, look, from everything I've seen and witnessed in my career, so they have to be separate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because they are a business unit, so to speak. Okay. So they are totally separate. They have different type of outcomes they need.
Yeah.
but they still need to work in parallel together. Now, a lot of the organisations that I go in to help now, when we have meetings, we actually have the leaders in the room, and
Yeah.
the leaders have to be on point. And luckily enough, the way we can actually communicate and get them to work together is, well, okay, I'll do this if you do this, and that we'll all meet in the middle. Perfect, because they get their teams to do different bits and pieces, which then works in parallel, and they finally come together with an outcome and they can deliver it. So there's clear lines, and they actually understand what each other's roles are in that process, because there's nothing worse when it gets blurred. I thought they were doing that. That's not mine. That's HR, not me. Yeah,
We're getting that clarity. You need
yeah,
that clarity.
it does, and it
Yeah.
also comes down to the leadership style you have of the business. Because there's some of the businesses we go and do what we call a health check, and I'll go into the directors and I'll sit down with the director and say, okay, we need to lift the lid. Okay, if you really want to know your risk profile right now to everything, whether it's HR, safety, IR, tax, are you paying your people the right? Are you wage theft? All that type of thing. You've got to be honest with me. And I said, but I'm going to have some very forthright questions, and you can't duck and weave, because we need to ask them to answer the questions. And I need you to get your HR person or safety person to be honest too, so we can actually have so. And then we all sit down in the room and we go through it, and then I deliver to the directors just to themselves, because at the end of the day, ultimately they're responsible
Yeah.
legally and compliance, and going somewhere they don't want to go. So
Yep.
at the end of the days, this is where you actually stand right now. And half of them go, don't want to know about this, don't want to know about this. Oh, make it go away. So, well, you can't make it go away without either changing this, employing these people, look after this, or, outsourcing this type of thing, whatever. So,
At least you got a starting point, though. I mean, that's the thing.
absolutely. And
At
most,
least you got a starting point. I mean, if they don't want to move the needle, okay, but they at least accept then that by not doing anything or doing very little, you know that there's going to be no moving the needle. But then I suppose from your perspective, you can go, okay, if we do these things, we can move the needle quite a lot, or this is the best bang for your buck, or whatever the action is going to be, right?
yep, because the biggest one too is that depending on the size of the organization, it will determine whether you have a HR manager that's got experience, been through uni, understands compliance to the law. Because at the end of the day, sorry, it is compliance, and things like that. You're talking about your smaller companies. You go and you start asking pertinent questions. What's on your pay slip? If you're not using the commercially viable accounting systems, what's on your pay slip? If someone quits out, how long before you pay them out? And they go, what? How? When? And the problem is that people just don't know what they don't know until someone like me turns up, or they get in trouble and they come and see you, and they go, well, give me this, this, this. And they go, what? And you go, oh no, here we go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these things that happen all the time. And unfortunately, how do we manage that?
I wanted to bring just a little bit back to your career, and because there is a lot of early career HR professionals listening to this. Now, you did have a bit of a tidbit of advice, but I wanted to almost get you to time travel back to an early career early career Simon.
I had hair.
You had hair, no, hair maybe a different color, I suspect. Uh, what advice would you have for that younger Simon, and therefore the early career professionals listening right now?
Oh, look, the biggest message I got out there is network, reach out to people, get bits of advice from a lot of people, mark your own path. Is just don't do what Simon says, because at the end of the day, that won't work. Your style has to change.
Yep.
And you'll pick 2 or 3 different ways. Then you'll start reading some of the court cases and journals, because don't forget, this is your business now. This is what you're training for. This is what you are. HR professional has to understand cultural change, actual legislation. What is the latest? Now, the biggest tip I can give you, there's a whole lot of uh, free journals and stuff you can register that if something happens out there, you'll get an email. I mean, the first half hour of my day, every day, is getting all these things from accounting, HR, safety, tax. So when someone rings me up, I've got some idea, hang on, I just read something, and I can go and refer to it,
Yep.
because you've got to keep abreast of, because the things are moving so quickly.
Yeah.
Be a part of an association. If your employer allow you, go be in the local community, with the Chamber of Commerces and things like that. Be a part, because you'll be surprised where you're sitting there having a cup of tea or a beer, depending on what time of day it is with these functions. You'll hear something, go, hang on a minute, what's going on over there? And
Yeah.
just it'll pick up, and it's amazing what will happen just by that. So get out there, network, get those free emails coming in all the time. Join the associations, spend the money, invest. You've invested a lot of money in your education. Invest that little bit more now into the association so that you keep it up to date and then reach out to people. Don't be scared to email or pick up the phone and go, hey, what would you think about this? Not everyone bills by the minute when we need a friendly chat, just like you don't do it, because there's a couple of times we've had conversation. And of course, when it becomes professional advice, then you do it differently. But don't be scared to pick up the phone and actually ask somebody, because there's no such thing as a stupid question.
I think it's a great tip because, as you said, it can be a lonely role, especially and also when you're in your early career. There's some things you just simply don't know, or you may have an inkling, but it's not quite the process, or the theory hasn't been digested just yet. And just having someone to just call, people that you call, and I do this with a number of people who will just call me and just say, hey, I've just got this thought. What do you think? And they go, yes, no, maybe, or please don't do that. Like, or please go ahead. Like, there's different ways you can skin a fish. And I also think that senior people like yourself, Simon, and many people who've been on the podcast are super willing to provide that guidance. I don't think I've met any, definitely definitely on the podcast guests we've had. None of them would ever say no to someone. I think they just, like, some of them might say, look, I'm not quite sure. Maybe talk to Simon, or maybe talk to someone else. But I don't think anyone would say no.
Professionally, that I haven't come across that really.
No.
We have our networks where we reach out and we go, I need to
Yeah.
the lifeline out. Hello.
Yeah.
What do you
I'm
reckon?
not quite sure about that, but I do. But the thing is as well that the senior people, if you reach out to senior people and you create that network, create that connection, they will probably know someone that could know, and it might be something a little bit outside of that HR scope. It might start to tinge into tax, or that's probably more of a commercial law question that's starting to go maybe here. Like, there'll always be someone that they'll know. And then the rest of the battle is trying to find someone that does.
Yeah, because it merges in together. Because I mean, the project that I'm actually on at the moment, commercial team meet me once a week, just now to have a conversation about some of their contracts. Where they're writing to people just saying, "Is this fact? The contract says this, but they're saying that." And I say, "Well, no. Here's the evidence to disprove it, or it is there." Because HR is just not dealing with the people on the ground. It's tendering. It's, are we about to buy someone out? So what's involved with that? As I said, did some of the stuff we work with insolvency companies when people go into dockers, so they're about to go into administration.
Yeah.
We manage that process.
Yeah.
There's so many different things, but you've got to be able to pick that phone up and say, hey, what do you reckon? And you made it perfect there. He ring you up and you go, look, if you go down that track, that's great, but you're really going to need my services now because you're going to be in trouble. Just the simple little things that people can pick up. And of course, what I find these days that the I'll say the older I get, the more that I want to part with that knowledge.
Yeah.
And if someone comes up and says, and as I said earlier, there is no such thing as a stupid question. You may think it is, so you keep your mouth shut. Then all of a sudden it comes back and bites you. But if you
Mm.
only put your hand up and say, well, what did you mean by that? And one thing I've learned in my career too is that if you actually tell someone a certain way they don't understand it, same message but a different way.
Yeah.
Now I learned that when I was learning to fly and I couldn't get a Pacific navigation thing with crosswinds.
Yep.
And the bloke said, Simon, but it's what country? I said, but I just can't understand it. He goes, well, you go fishing? You go, yep, right. Your boat's going down there, the tide's going ready to, oh, that's easy. It just went like that. So it's the same thing. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask it. If you don't understand, say, I don't get it.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
the person can then, and if they're a good person, they'll pitch it a different way to you so you can actually understand. Because we all got different learning styles. Some
Yes.
people want to see hands, some people want to see pictures, and some people just want to be seen like this. So it's all part of how we communicate that message.
No, and it still goes back to that, that theme that you talk about, which is empathy, right? Like he's still going back to that whole idea of empathy, and I really like that. The other demographic that probably listens to this is probably people like yourself, people who've been in the HR game for a while, people that are experienced people who've got a seat at the table potentially, or decision makers. What are the two big pieces of advice you would have for any person in HR or is currently in human resources?
The biggest one at the moment is make sure you're up to date with the latest changes because
Hmm.
they really are changing quite a bit. And the impact of those
Mm.
changes within a business has a huge impact to a business. It can be emotionally, it could be financially. So, as a HR professional, they are looking upon you to provide that advice to the management team, the leadership team, the directors of a company, depends on what size it is.
Yeah.
What does this actually mean to me? And you got to be able to talk to it, research it, and actually come up. So that is one of the biggest ones. And your network is by far the biggest thing for you. You've got to have that network for your own well-being. Because there's
Mm.
many times that you may go home and sit there very quiet, and your partner will just sit there. You okay? Yep,
Mm.
yep. And then it's because there's so much building up at work. Because you may have to be doing something coming up, or something's happened, or you're dealing with a case you can't talk about. But
Yeah.
again, if you go to another professional, so look, I just need to chat. Or what do you recommend? That
Yeah.
network is by far one of the biggest things, and those emails that keeps me going up to date with how I can do the business.
Excellent. Moving from that, what do you think the biggest challenge? What's the biggest challenge you're facing now in human resources, and how are you tackling it?
Okay, so the biggest challenge we got is everyone's talking about AI and how it affects.
Mm.
As a recruiter, yes, it's affecting your C.
Yeah.
But you'll also got the certain demographic of people that don't want to talk to a text message. They want to see a face. They want to hear a person, which is great because us as a boutique sort of business for recruitment, we actually do that. We go from lawyers to accountants to executives to right down to to someone flying an aeroplane.
Yeah.
But they want that personal contact. So it's a big one. Retaining staff at the moment is
Mm.
also a huge one. And an organisation can spend a lot of time and money. I'd say, oh, we pay the award, we do that. I can tell you now, these days, it's not all about the money. It's what else will the business do for me to actually make me feel like a part of the business, not just a number.
And just on that point, what is that? Like, what is it that? What's the more? So if you say the money is not, if that's so it's like a baseline almost. We're paying more above the award, or we're paying these bonuses, but you're saying needs to be more than that. What is that more? Like, what is that? I suppose that's. I mean, it's a big question, but I'm not sure if you can answer
Well, if you want more, there is 1300 is my number. And
it.
look, it's And look, again, it's a good question because it depends on what industry you're in.
Mm.
It totally changes. I mean, we'll go from, let's go your fly out operators.
Yep. Yep.
We'll go and give them, okay, so we've gone from turboprop to a jet now. We give them the hot meal. That wins so many people over saying, oh, because it's fatigue, it's not noisy, we've got a hot meal versus a tea and a coffee and a biscuit. Okay, yes, it's a cost, but there's those type of things.
Right.
It comes down to, if I'm in town, everyone needs to be back in the office. Okay, is the environment where we sit down and have a coffee break or a cup of tea aesthetically pleasing, where we actually feel like being, we're being treasured here, and
Yeah.
we like to come to work. There's so many different things. People putting extra super in. They're doing 4-day weeks. But that comes back to HR actually mapping out what you have to do for a task. How can we achieve that? Do we need more people, but do a 4-day or a roster? Or
Yep.
there's a whole lot of different things. But again, it comes back down to, what is the business? What are we achieving? Are we selling a product, a service? Doesn't matter. What are we actually doing? And then you have to look at it and go, how do we now retain our people? Now, it's not
Mm.
putting a slippery slide in from the first floor down to the ground floor, because the workers' comp goes through the roof when they come out. I've seen people spend $1 million on that when they're building and took it out 2 weeks later.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, it even come down to what type of coffee or tea that we actually have.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's amazing, just a little bit. And they go, oh, but we spent next to, $2,000 on coffee this year. Have you had anyone leave?
Mm.
No. Ask people, have that open communication and say, okay, what's some of the things we can do here that actually makes you feel like part of the team?
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, you're going to get people who, I want to be delivered in a Rolls Royce in the morning. And, you're going to have pie in the sky sort of
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
but there'll be little tiny things all of a sudden. And you just got to look at diversity of,
Yeah.
your workforce. What is your workforce made up of? Where do they come from? Are they traveling far? Are they close? Religion, all those type of things you've got to say, because they are your people. Without those people, you don't have a business.
Just talking about that for one moment, I just want to grab a bit there that you talked about, because I think it's really important, which is that idea that you need to ask the question of what our workforce, wants or needs. And it's not just industry specific, but business specific. How do you get that information? How do you get that data? I know you said ask them, but obviously some businesses have a lot more people and everything else. But how do you get to that point? Like, how do you ask people, like, hey, what do you want? I mean, you got the pie in the sky stuff, but what do you actually, what do you want? What would, make things better, cooler, easier to work here, whatever it might be?
It comes back, and this is where you work with safety.
Mm.
So you might have a safety committee in the office space, depending on what size it is, where it is, what
Yeah.
industry, or a designated work group.
Yep.
Same type of thing, but
Yeah.
so they're your consultation piece between the workforce up to the management, things like that,
Yeah.
to work together. But it's also, this is where your HR professionals actually goes and has a cup of tea and sits amongst them instead of sitting in the office, and listen.
Yeah.
Get to know the people, what's going, and sit back. And I usually sit back on what are they doing? They come in, time and motion. That's not to say how long they're having for smoko. They're coming in. Okay, so if we got rid of that kettle there, which takes forever to boil, we have hot water on tap. People feel themselves more efficient because they're in there doing it, instead of sitting there going, oh God, we're going to sit here and wait all this. Because it's surprising the amount of people actually are very conscious of their time too,
Yep.
and what they're
Yep.
actually doing. And get frustrated with those type of things. It's just those little tiny things. It's amazing. I'll throw it right back to an experience way back when I first started. We were pushing the bridges over the Manning River at Taree. So it was back in 1998. So you build a bridge segment for 23 metres, push it out, wait for
Yep.
the bit and push it out. And we're having troubles because the oil that you had to put in between the bridge and the pier car to make it slide was very expensive. And if it dribbled, it stained, or if it fell in the river, it just spread straight across because the
Yeah.
manure was full of oysters. So that was environmental. We cannot do this.
Jeez.
So we were having a barbecue lunch on a Sunday, and we just said to the workforce, he said, has anyone got any ideas? We had HR there, we had the whole management team. Yeah, has anyone got any ideas? And the bloke cooking on the barbecue just laughed. He picked up a Pure and Simple can. So, what do we use Pure and Simple? We saved 50 grand, got rid of working at heights, we got rid of pollution
Wow.
because someone just sat there and thought they said something silly because everyone was just listening, and they actually put the problem out to the whole community, the whole workforce. And mate, and I learned back then that never be afraid to ask people, the workforce, this is a problem. What do you feel? And if we're getting a lot of absenteeism all of a sudden, and people just not bothered turning up, with a lot of sick people turning up or getting medical certificates, okay, the trends are here. What's going on? What is the issue? And it comes back to the environment they're working in. And it could be the culture. It could be cheap coffee, no
Yeah.
tea, or those simple little things could make a huge difference. Versus have we got, is it cool enough or is it too hot? Those types of things.
I want to change gears a little bit because we talked about this previously. Simon, you're based out of Rockhampton, right? Rockhampton, Queensland, in
Yep.
regional Queensland. And you, can I ask, why did you want to base yourself and ensure you are in the Rockhampton region? Because I know you work all over Australia, but why did you choose Rockhampton? Why did you want to stay there in that regional area?
Look, one of and again, this is where we ask questions, be honest. First one was my family was there, and I wanted my children to grow up with their cousins and everything like that. Second, that's when I was actually working for other people and flying all around the countryside. So I was corporate, flying around. When I started my business 10 years ago, I based it in Rockhampton for one reason being, I wanted to support the regions. The regions didn't have professional people, so to speak, back then. What was happening is people flying from Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne,
Yeah.
coming up to the regions and then going back. So your airfares up and down each day, accommodation, everything like that. So, okay, but why are we doing this when we've got actually talented people that actually can provide those services from a local to a local?
Yep.
And that's the main reason why I set the business up out of Rockhampton. So because I could basically fly anywhere that I had to go globally out of Rocky, 20 minutes to the airport, and I could be anywhere depending on fog and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could go anywhere, and it's luckily enough it was achievable to be. The clients were happy with the service, even though say I'm in Campton, they say, "Yep, that's cool. We don't care because I'm always on Teams, always on a phone, or
Of course.
I can jump on the next plane." And there's been a couple of times where we've had a phone call say, "We need you here now."
Yeah.
And I just pack a bag, and I've got a go
So,
bag sitting there in the office anyway, but it's and one in the vehicle, and basically I just go to the airport. When's the next plane? Here's my Visa card. Oh, that hurts. But anyway, and we just and we do. That's what we do.
mhm.
We're there for the clients to give that extra support 24/7.
I'm going to ask you something that we always ask all our HR Engage podcast guests this question. This question usually is the one that might get a few tongues wagging, but what is the one thing about human resources that people might disagree with you about?
As in professional, or how they see HR?
Either or. You can choose either or.
Okay, so well, it's two ways because of the way people perceive HR is we're always the enemy.
Mhm.
Okay, because unfortunately we're always delivering a message that people usually don't like. and that is the biggest thing. And that's why, to a lot of the elder HR people have got calluses, because we've been through a lot of wars. We've been through a lot of turmoil with legislation changes and everything like that. And we sit side by side with our IR people, our professionals, and we share the common goal. We have to send a message that people don't like. And, I've sat in front of groups of 150 and yelling and screaming and chanting at me. So, well, sorry, this is just the way it is.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the HR is usually that usually if you get called to HR, everyone thinks automatically I'm being sacked or there's something wrong.
Yep.
Instead of, hey, we just want to see if you want to, interested in new direction in your career, or how can we help you? We've noticed you're doing really well. What else can we do? We don't hear enough good stories coming out from our profession from the other side of the fence.
Yep.
And if anything in the industry, we need to sort of change that a bit, where people can actually see us as not always being the ogres. And as I said earlier on, the IR, safety and HR, no one really wants to know us until something goes wrong, and the managers really want to know us to help them out. But at the same time, we've got a job, we've got a function, and it is real. And sometimes there's bullying, there's all sorts of other complaints that come in that have to be handled properly, efficiently, and with empathy,
Yeah.
and discreetly. So that is one of the biggest things I find, that people see us in this form of business as not always the best, because we're usually having to say, no, sorry, or yep, and people don't like that.
Yes. Yep. It's good point. And what was the other point that you're going to bring up?
Oh, I don't know. What was that? Look, the biggest point is internally is I can't emphasize enough that people need to be able to reaching out. When something goes, be part of the institute HR and all those type of things, because it's
Yeah.
the lessons learned and the sharing and all that sort of stuff. We can't do it by ourselves.
Why do you think there has been that obstacle? I mean, maybe more lately I see from professionals being more open to opening up. For example, this podcast, I've had a lot of people open up about their experience and their journey and the challenges they're facing, and being quite authentic with all that. Why do you think there is this obstacle of, oh, if I sort of share this, it'll make me look may look a certain way, or I don't want to ask those types of questions, or I don't want to reach out to someone. Like, why do you think there's this obstacle in HR? I know generally you could say there's an obstacle generally, but in the HR space, it seems to be more prevalent.
Look, it's both in HR and safety, to be honest.
Yeah.
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 And I think it's just because of the nature of the work that we do.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of the times we're talking legal stuff and privacy, and that has always kept people very close-lipped. Or
Yeah.
but you've still got to be able to have the conversation without saying this person or that person. And it's harder if you're working for a business,
Yeah.
and because everyone goes, "Oh, talking about your business." Where as a consultant, it's easy because I've got clients Australia-wide,
Yes.
so
Yes.
it doesn't pinpoint it. So that is probably one of the other issues they have trouble with.
There's a legitimate privacy concern, legitimate concerns about pinpointing it onto a particular scenario that they're dealing with. So even given generalities could give that away. Is that you think is the
Correct.
obstacle there? Do you think there's a way around that?
Well, you could always say, "I'm asking for a friend." uh, Look, and I suppose I'm lucky in that sense, is that once you've been there, then people get to know you. They know that you can actually ring up and say, "Hey, look, we've got a
Yeah.
problem," and know that it's not going to go anywhere, or they won't hint at where it's from or anything
So
like
more
that.
so trust.
Absolutely.
Trusting. Yeah.
So I've got some clients now that will just pick the phone directly to me.
Yeah.
And then I say, "Look, okay, this isn't mine now. I need to refer you to someone else for the right advice." And I don't have a problem with it, because I don't do this.
Yeah.
I'm a bespoke type of business where I surround myself with great networks. This is the best person to talk about this right now to, because they're going to give you the better. They'll remember that more than me trying to stumble through something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one thing. I mean, you've got to have that network and be upfront and say, yep, I reckon this, but you're better off talking to these people. And I have them all around me, from lawyers to accountants, HR, safety professional, all those type of things, business coaches, where I'll quite often just put my hand and say, okay, this is now. And I mean, I helped one local business, they went within 4 years, quadrupled their income and their staffing. I got them to this point. I said, I've done my bit. You now need to go to this level now for this, and they're
Yeah.
to this level. Now they're up here. But it started here with me, but I knew where, as far as I could take them.
Yep.
That was it.
Yep.
I can't take you any further. It's now you need to go to the next level.
I was gonna. Sorry, before we get into anything else, I do want to change gears a bit because there's a tradition on the HR Engage podcast that we ask these rapid fire questions. I just gonna ask you a question. The first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. Okay. It's about you. All right. So keep that in mind. All right. Got it.
Hope so.
You look worried, but don't
No,
be. Don't be.
no, I'm not worried.
All right. What is your favorite movie, Simon?
Oh, Air America.
Oh, that's a blast from the past. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm showing my age again.
What's your favorite holiday destination, Simon?
Asia as a whole.
Okay. Any particular parts of Asia?
No, I've worked through it quite a bit, and I just really resonate with the people there. I've got a lot of respect, and I've done some fantastic projects over there, and it's just the culture is what I love.
Mm,
My wife always used to say, you always came back more relaxed after coming back from there working on a project that went bad than you did in Australia. The project's going good.
wow. Wow.
She was my barometer, and that's what she always says.
Incredible. Incredible. Apart from family and friends, who has inspired you the most?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't really have anyone out there that I just follow or done anything like that. Again, I just have such a wide variety. So that one, to be honest, I can't say this person here did it for me. No, I haven't got anyone specific at all. Sorry.
That's all right. I mean, so you basically got a wide range of people that you sort of pick.
Yep.
Pick parts, pick the brain, pick all types of things that to sort of
Correct.
utilize for your own for yourself. That's
What
really
did when I was a lot younger, back in school, when I started looking at breaking in horses and things like that,
yeah.
an old stockman said to me, he pulled me aside one day and he said, Simon, he said, look, you're going to learn that bloke's style of breaking in a horse. You're going to find that person's. Pick what you liked out of the most, make your own. And I've never, ever, ever forgotten that.
Wow.
And then, my father's mum actually put this is weird, but put a picture behind the toilet door that always never follow another man's footsteps and make your own. Never forgotten that. And I've done that. I've been.
Well, you wouldn't have forgotten it because you saw it every day. Like you're reading it every day, right? That's probably why she put it up there.
Yeah, just don't follow the trend. Make your own. Go out and be bold, and that's how I help a lot of startups. Some of them don't like me because I tell them you're about to lose your house. Don't do it. You're following emotion. You're not actually going down the track of actually finding something that people need.
It's great. I mean, it's really interesting to hear it from your perspective because you basically said, look, there's not one or two people that have inspired me. There's so many that's inspired me. There's been things that have been told that was inspiring. There's the stockman and your mum putting that sign up, but that essentially has crafted you to where you are right now. And not only that, you're willing to then pass that knowledge on to others, which I think is really fantastic. I think you already said this, but I just want to reconfirm. But what is the thing you do outside of work that you're passionate about or keeps you going?
Flying is my passion.
Mm. You didn't
Um,
mention that, yeah.
yeah, so flying. So most of my spare time back in the day, I used to spend in an airplane flying around somewhere. These days, I just don't have the time. And then, you might find someone in the city who's having their downtime. They'll go, oh, right, they might participate in some drugs of some sort. Well, I always say the costs are the same. The consequences if I get it wrong is the same. Because
Yes.
flying upside down, round and round in circles, if you get that wrong, it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
flying would have to be that, and just sitting back and relaxing. Actually, it's when I shut down, and when I go home, because unfortunately these days I'm all in the countryside and very rarely at home. And
Mhm.
I flew back to Rockhampton on the weekend for the law ball to participate in that, and then basically on the first plane out of Rockhampton, I'm in Sydney today.
Yep.
So I'm always around the countryside somewhere. So it's full on. But aeroplanes and just chilling out, doing nothing, just sitting back. My wife, who thinks, come on, go for a walk. What? A walk? I'll sit here and watch you while you go and climb that mountain. I'll be back when you get back. I'll be here.
Um, Tell us something about yourself that people don't know about you.
Oh, I suppose there's lots of little things that we don't tell about each other. I mean, I suppose little things like when we had the Commonwealth Games many years ago in Melbourne, we had the relay bat and run.
Mhm.
I helped run it from Marlborough to Rockhampton, so we had little bits and pieces.
Yep.
But a lot of people were there, so I just kept running. So I did that many. I couldn't walk for about 3 days afterwards. Um, so we've done a
And did
lot.
you have to keep a pace? Was there a particular
Yeah,
pace you
that was my job at the
Oh,
end. I kept the pace where people would get on and off the buses, but while I was running, I was fine. I was fit then.
yeah.
But when I stopped for 3
Yeah.
days. So I was sore. I couldn't
Wow.
move.
Would have been a great experience, though. It would have been cool.
Oh, look, it's great. Look, I've been so lucky in my career. I mean, when I turned 18, my father said, look, you didn't have many birthdays when you were in New Guinea, stuff like that. Here's a round the world ticket. And I went and, visited some of the most amazing places being involved with wildlife. So our family's got a crocodile farm. So we've been brought up around wildlife, people all around the world. And there's a lot of those type of adventure national parks and things. So
Yep.
I've been to places where most tourist people aren't allowed, and some of those experiences have been awesome. They've been you can't write about it. They've been really, really good. But yeah, usually I keep to myself. The biggest one is I help a lot of startups, mentor with this Institute of Health and Safety, industry leaders, managers, those type of places. So again, I just part knowledge. People ring me up, so I'm more than happy to share and point them in the right direction. Also, watch out for this because it'll come back and get you behind the ears.
Um, Before I close off, if you could recommend a book, movie, TV show, or podcast to listeners, what would it be and why?
Books, you're out of luck. One of the biggest things. I struggle to read books because I'm behind a computer most of the day, so I just don't. And
Yeah.
and things like that. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't have a particular one. If I'm driving somewhere or flying,
Hmm.
instead of, I see that as a waste of time just sitting there because I might drive for 6 hours to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll have a range from business ones to HR, to self awareness. I just have a variety of them. Um, I don't have any favorites.
Are there
Or ones that
any ones you're listening to lately? What's the latest ones you're listening to right now?
well, I listened to your last one, so I listened to you what I was getting into today.
That is a HR Engage podcast with me, Jonathan Mamaril, by the way.
But no, it totally depends. I don't. I just go. Yep, that looks interesting. I'll sit there. There's the crazy CEOs, those type of things. A lot of the entrepreneurs, And yeah, I've got dyslexia, so I don't like reading. It takes me. I always put it to people. They say, well, "What's that mean?" He said, "For me, it's like doing 3 sit-ups to actually retain something where it'll take you one."
Mm, mm.
So reading is not my thing. Where I'll sit down, I'll listen,
Yep.
and I'll watch, and that's my learning style.
Great.
So I do a lot of that. And then when I actually get out and talk with people and communicate, it's not here's a piece of paper. I actually draw up, even draw stuff in the ground, so people can actually. And if they don't understand, that's okay. Let me put it this way, and I go, now I understand what you say, because I learned that way back when I was flying about navigation. There's a little key things in our career changes for the rest of our lives. So we remember those key little things, and that was the big learning for me, was to somebody doesn't understand what you're talking about, just look at change it, but the same message, but change the context in which you're actually delivering it.
Is there a quote or a moment of inspiration you'd like to leave us with?
Oh, my one that we use for my business every day, people just don't know what they don't know. And to be honest, that is every single day, that if I get a phone call or an email, is that, there is so much. And that's why I'm a generalist. I don't pretend whatsoever to know everything. But again, my network, if I don't know something, I know who to pick the phone up and reach out to someone to ask them a question. Um, because these days in business, there is just so much we have to know and absorb to actually run a business in this country. Most overregulated, of all the professionals, it's the most overregulated country in the world for things we have to do.
It's been such a pleasure speaking to you, Simon, today. That whole idea that of empathy, being really human centric has been, I think, a constant for you throughout your career, and also your philosophy. I mean, you know, the whole discussion around building a network and you know using that as a way to help yourself, help others, build trust, build connection, because acknowledging that this is HR can be a lonely HR and safety can be very lonely
Correct.
positions. Um, and that yes, you come from a consulting side and a generalist side, but almost in some respects, because you've seen so much from so many different angles, I think that even just those pieces of advice hold so much weight. I think the other one that really stuck to me was, you know, don't be afraid to ask. Yes, you have that network, so you can ask, but also take that first step and don't be afraid to ask, because different people learn in different ways, different communication styles, different learning styles, and it may be that you just need someone else to tell you in a different way. Like you said, that whole example of your flight teacher talking to you about that
Yeah.
thing you can't understand while you're learning to fly. Um, just a different way of thinking. I think that's just so excellent. I think the other thing as well that people will get a lot out of today is that from what you've seen in your career, that how you communicate, because maybe the results or the message is going to be pretty similar or the same, and most of the time in HR and safety, it's going to be, relatively negative. But also you also think that there could be a positive way, and you talked about that briefly. But staying on the communication point, that there's also different ways to communicate, and that is not going to be a one size fits all, which means that people in HR have to learn that, they have to put some work and effort in that, and that's, I suspect, can be quite difficult for many, Simon. So
Well, look, it is, especially the people coming up through the ranks
yeah,
who haven't got the scars and don't walk around like this like we do. Um, the Because once you get those scars, you then become more resilient to it,
mm,
and you can sit there and someone could be sort of really going off, and you just know, okay, they're not attacking me. But when you're first coming up through the ranks, you take it on. Yeah, they're attacking me, and
yeah,
that's the biggest thing. Um, One of the last points I really want to make sure that the message from me is that within HR, time is of the essence.
mm,
If someone comes to you with a complaint, you've got a timeline which starts. And if you don't go and ask for help or ask that question off a lifeline, say, hey, I've got this, and start, because once you've missed those timelines, it becomes a totally different ballgame
Because very
and a
difficult.
world of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you've got to take it seriously. Okay, this is formal. You're making this down. Bang, bang, right. Tick, 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 tick. Whether you like it or not, you have a timeline on which you have, and it doesn't matter. There's a whole lot of different things. Even with safety, you've got a timeline which is going to bite you in the backside if you don't start working on it immediately, passing it up the tree, and working out where it sits. But that timeline is, I've been caught a couple of times in my career, and it hurts.
Yeah. And one of the last things you talked about as well is not being, being bold and forging your own path. So I want you to leave us with your mum's sign on the back of the toilet door. What did it say again, Simon?
Don't walk in other people's footsteps. Forge your own path.
Forge your own path. Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the HR Engage podcast. Thank you so much, mate.
Not a problem, and it's a pleasure.
So that's another episode wrap up for the HR Engage podcast with myself, Jonathan Mamaril. As always, like, follow, subscribe on all the platforms you can. Make sure you send it off to other people, send it off and share, repost, so more people in the HR community can see people like Simon and hear what they have to say. Car, bus, or train, no matter what it is. I'm Jonathan Mamaril, the HR Engage podcast. Speak soon.